All right, welcome aboard, everybody. My name is Doobyis. This is a show that I call Fly in Formation, and it's a spin-off. It's a segment that I do every week where I talk to artists across the country, and it's kind of a spin-off from my weekly mix show called After the Smoke is Clear, which you can listen to for free at mixcloud.com/Doobyis. I play an hour worth of indie hip-hop from across Canada every week over there. And this Fly in Formation segment is just kind of something that I decided to start doing a couple years back, I guess 3 years ago now, where I'm just reaching out to different artists to try to learn more about the artists specifically, but also about their scene, their local scenes, because I feel like, there's a lot of hip hop fans in Canada, but a lot of people just kind of know one or two artists who are their favorite guy that they've seen at a show, and they don't really do a lot of checking out who else is in the local scenes. So I've started really just trying to dig in more and learn more about the local scenes myself, and it's been amazing how much talent there is across the country, man. But today, joining me, I of course have a Toronto legend, guy who's been on the scene for a long time, Danny O. Welcome, man. Glad to have you.
Hey, big up, Doobyis. I appreciate you having me on the show, bro.
Hey, thanks, dude. So it's been a while since Vigilante dropped. That was a 2024 late release, right? Was that December?
No,
when did you drop that?
In May, so it's almost a year. So it's crazy how time flies, but next month is basically 1 year since it dropped. May 10th it dropped.
Okay, damn.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, man, I really enjoyed the album. I've played tracks from the album on Atsic, over the past. Yeah, and it always fits right in, man. I gravitate towards the boom bap sound, right? I try to keep an open ear to, the other lanes of hip hop that have emerged and that are big right now. But I find that a lot of what I really enjoy the most personally is that boom bap sound, and you nailed it on Vigilante, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude. So I guess, can you just tell us what Vigilante kind of meant to you, and what people could expect listening to it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, Vigilante actually was kind of inspired during COVID when we were all locked down and not doing a whole lot. And I took in the New Blood series, the Dexter, which I thought was going to be the finale. So I've long been a Dexter fan.
Okay.
And a huge fan of the concept of vigilantism, of doing right when there is injustice and handling it in a way that's not necessarily lawful, but obviously, we know the definition of vigilante, and Dexter is like a classic, or at least modern example of that on television. Sure. I was also introduced to Death Note, which is a Japanese anime based on a manga, and the lead character also is a vigilante in the way that he utilizes the Death Note, which is this book in which you write people's names in it if you want them dead. So it's just a crazy concept, and both of those really spoke to me, man, because also during COVID, we bore witness to all kinds of injustice taking place. Racism has always existed, bigotry, hatred, homophobia, Islamophobia. These things have long existed, but I just felt like during COVID, when we had more time to just sit there and take it in online, we saw so many examples of it that I just felt like in my heart, I needed to speak out on it. So Vigilante is essentially like, in a way, I take on this character of an individual who wants to do away with injustice and kill or murder, as it was, these various aspects of our world. So there's songs on there about the way in which we use social media to fake in front or cause, conflict, gun violence. There's a song about that. There's a song about anti-racism. There's a song about self-hatred, specifically in the Black community. There's a song about jealousy, and specifically retroactive jealousy and how it impacts relationships. And that's kind of personal experience that I went through. And there's even a song about having self-doubt and a lack of confidence as it relates to me personally, within the music industry. So all of these things are tackled throughout the Vigilante album. And spoiler alert, as the vigilante, I overcome it, I destroy it, and I win, as it were, like if it were a movie or film. There's a beginning, middle, and end. So the Vigilante is introduced at the beginning of the album. You hear tracks that go through all of the material that I just mentioned, the concepts I just mentioned, and then it ends with a state of confidence and renewal, so to speak,
Yeah.
and thanks. I give thanks at the end of the album. So that is the overall concept. And to speak to your point about its boom bap sound, it was just necessary that I go back to my roots. I came up in the 90s. Anybody who came up in the 90s loves that boom bap sound, and I just think it's what speaks to me personally the most, and it was what was necessary for me to communicate what I wanted on this album.
Yeah, man. So I read a couple, bios and stuff that you have up online, and in
Yeah.
one of those bios, I saw a quote from you that these 12 songs are the best 12 songs in your entire
Yeah.
catalog, which says something, because like you have, music that goes back to the late 90s, I think, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So what is it to you that kind of set this apart or above the rest of your catalog?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what we just talked about, and that I was so deeply connected to the sound and the concepts of all of the songs. They
Yeah.
matter. I mean, I've always been an MC who's written lyrics that like matter to me personally. I mean, the album before Vigilante was The Day It All Changed. I became a father and did a whole album about fatherhood. So Vigilante is just a little bit more of a, it's a serious concept in that I'm dealing with the world at large and injustice and things of that nature. So I wrote from the heart in a way that was really, I think, meaningful and potent. Talking about coming up in the 90s, man, I grew up on the Public Enemies of the world and the NWAs and the Ice-T's and the X-Clans, who had a lot to say in their music, spoke out against racism, injustice,
Yeah.
prejudice, etc. So I just thought it was necessary for me because I've always felt that. It's always been in my heart. So I'm like, I really didn't feel like I had the material in my catalog to sort of back up this personal feeling that I have, my political stances and things of that nature. And I'm like, Vigilante has got to be the record where I tackle all of this. So I think it's the most important just in terms of what it means to, I don't know, society at large. The music, like I said, man, it's as raw as it gets. And I was really, really married to every beat that I chose or got produced for the album. Um, and yeah, I also think that having been in the game so long, you have to get better with time. I know a
Yeah.
lot of artists don't, or at least as fans, we don't feel like they do. But listen, I've grown and matured, and I can't make an album about fatherhood without becoming a father. I can't make an album like Vigilante if I don't have the life experience to really speak on these topics. That's
Right.
why I begin the album with two songs that really speak to who Danny O is and why you should even be listening to me to begin with, and what kind of lyricist I am. So even if you've never heard of me and you don't know that this is album number 6, the album introduces you to me in a way where it's like, maybe there's a reason to listen to this guy. So I think it's important. I think it's strong. And like I said, I feel like I'm getting better with time. I actually do teach hip hop songwriting in Toronto. So I'm almost 20 years deep as a songwriting teacher.
Oh,
So I practice what I preach, man. And if I wasn't getting better at it, I feel like I just wouldn't do it anymore. So my most recent record, it had to be my best one.
for real, man. I did want to ask too, like, I feel like every MC is going to tell you their most recent record is their best
Yes,
one, right? Like it's
for
kind of
sure.
a standard feeling
I
that
think
any
so.
MC is going to have. Because otherwise they would have made it better, I think, but has
Yeah.
there ever been a point in your career when you dropped an album that you didn't think was the best one, or is that always the
Yeah.
trend? Keep
That's
it
a
pushing forward.
No, that's a good question. No, at the moment that the album comes out, no, I feel like it's my best work. But I think that's the benefit of being an artist who's dedicated to his craft. I always want to get better.
Yeah.
So for every album that I've done, it fit the time that it was done. Like I couldn't make Another Day It All Change, and it's not because I'm not the proudest father in the world, but it's because I've been there and done that in the musically, right?
Right.
Like I tackled my joy of becoming Melina's dad, did an album about it, and I handled my business and needed to. Albums previous to that were about different experiences up until that point in my life. So having grown since then, sometimes if I listen back to my old stuff, it's not like I don't love it, but it's not exactly me anymore. And I
Right.
think that's what life is. Like we
Yeah.
all grow, we all develop, we all learn. So you're not the same person you once were. So I can appreciate it. I'm happy I did it, but I also look at it as a level to which I got to that I've since grown from.
Yeah. Word.
So my
S-
hope, of course, is that every album I drop moving forward becomes my favorite at the time.
Yeah, man. So the day it all changed, that was like,
Yeah.
I want to say 2014 or so, something around
No,
there.
2019. My daughter was born in 2014,
Okay.
but the album dropped in 2019.
Okay, so I mean, who knows, man? That if that was you know, that means your daughter is now in the teenage years or whatever. There's a whole different set of struggles you could probably write about there or
That's
whatever.
true.
I think, you know, it's common that I hear, because I listen to so much indie hip hop for my show every week. Like I'm
Yeah.
talking 8 or 9 hours worth of new releases from just Canadian
Wow.
artists every week. But
Wow.
the writing about your new son or daughter is like something that a lot of MCs do, right? It typically kind of for one song anyways, instead of for an entire
Yeah.
album.
Right.
But yeah, I'm trying to like think, and I haven't heard many people talk about like trying to be a rapper while you have teenage children or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
That
and
could be a whole different ball of wax, man.
I agree. If you look at it, I think that type of material belongs within the world of hip hop culture because hip hop itself has grown. I'm talking about my
Yeah,
growth and experience over the years, but obviously a couple years ago we celebrated 50 years of hip hop. So when I do my workshops and my assemblies and I'm working with youth and explaining hip hop's origin and all that, I also discuss the fact that now that hip hop itself is in its 50s, of course, we have artists in their 50s and
yeah,
older. So we should also have material that fits that type of audience, that level of age. Of course, there's young people involved in it, and that's great.
yeah,
But depending on where you're at in life, you're going to be speaking out on different things. And that's also the beauty of hip hop music, which of course is just one of the many facets and elements of hip hop culture. And that is being real, representing, being original and unique and all of that stuff. So why would you, in say your 40s and 50s, becoming a parent and all these things you've experienced, be talking about the same things you would in your teens? Because
100%.
hip hop music isn't specific to any one type of topic. You know, when we deal with R&B soul, which I love, neo soul especially, it's predominantly love songs, and we understand that. We accept the music form as like it's going to be romantic.
Yeah,
In hip hop, we're not bound by any one specific topic. So I think that for an artist, or for any artist, or any fan for that matter, to associate themselves in this world and assume that we can't speak on specific topics or that that doesn't belong because, it's too, I don't know, he's happy and proud, he's a dad. Like, no, that's as hip hop as any other topic.
yeah,
And I would argue a lot of the foul, violent shit really shouldn't be part of the culture. So we can have that argument. Hip hop has
yeah.
grown and it will only continue to grow and get more mature. So we got to grow with it.
I love that perspective, man. I agree completely. I
Yeah.
think a lot of artists do their best work once they have some life experience under the belt.
Oh, for sure. I think
It's
so too.
it's a super rarity that you get somebody, you know, doing the Nas and putting the best album that
Yeah.
has ever been or whatever out at age 18 or whatever, and somehow having all this wisdom that young. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people just don't, and you
No,
hear
but
it in
that
the
just
music
speaks to
too,
how,
right?
yeah, man. And it just speaks to how talented Nas is.
Yeah,
And to be fair as well, I believe in the fact that when you hear an artist for the first time or their first album or whatever, and that's your introduction, we as fans never let that go. Like I'll always love Illmatic, it'll always be my favorite,
yeah,
as will, 3 Feet High and Rising and some of these debut albums, What the Album. You're gonna be attached to it because that was your introduction. And
right.
you can't go back in time. So even if you were to play a 30-year-old album today, I just saw online how Tribe is celebrating the 35th anniversary of People's Instinctive Travels in the Paths of Rhythm. Love that album. It's a great album. It introduced me to Tribe Called Quest, or at least after Buddy, they were on Buddy with De La Soul. And
Right.
the point is, they might have made better records, and maybe we've heard better records since, but we're not going to change our opinion of how much we love it. And we also can't expect someone today, a young person, to listen to it and
And get the
feel what
same
we
thing.
felt in
Yeah.
1990 because it's 2025. There's a lot of other things happening in this world, a lot of other music to take in that will form your opinion that's different than when we were back in the 90s and had to go to the store to buy the tape or the record, or we had to wait for Much Music on Rap City to play the video, and to
100%.
hear
Yeah.
rap like that for the first time. So I don't expect people to have the same feeling as me, but I'm a
Well,
90s dude who loves all those early records.
yeah, I agree completely, man. The nostalgia of, well, and it's kind of a cliche that everybody's favorite stuff is what happened when they were kind of coming of age,
Sure.
right? The stuff
Yes.
that we were growing up in high school with or whatever. And, for me, Illmatic was a long ways before that, but I grew up so like, small town Alberta or whatever, where it was so far removed from the
Right. Yeah.
actual hip hop culture that I was still, doing my homework, going back to some of those classic albums. And so it still
Yeah.
feels like the music that I was vibing to while I was in high school, kind of coming of age
That's
or
good.
whatever, right?
That's good.
But another testament to Nas's talent is that he has evolved throughout his career, and that the dude
Right.
is still dropping album after album of relevant
Yeah.
music that's
Right.
highly skilled and everything. So I
For
think
sure.
it's something that hip hop needs to forget, that hip hop is a young man's game. A lot of people want to have that opinion that it's for the younger crowd and that people should get out of it. I think it's fun to
Yeah,
watch an
man.
artist
It's
mature and evolve throughout the years too, right?
For sure. I think that's definitely a foolish opinion, especially if you forget that hip hop is made up now, anyways, it's made up of a lot of different styles and sounds.
Yeah,
So you could argue that there is a style and sound for the young generation, which is true.
yeah,
And then you have a style and sound that we grew up on that we're still fostering and growing. You talked off the top of this interview about that boom bap sound. Boom bap is still very much alive and well in 2025. So
definitely.
you can't look at the evolution of boom bap and claim it's for the kids when boom bap is something we grew up with. The 40s and the 50 somethings are making boom bap, and we
Yeah,
still love it because it's still dope and it's not going anywhere. So people do have to cut off that young man talk unless you're talking about a very specific and arguably small section of the entire culture.
for real. The listeners have aged as well, right? Like you said, everybody
Absolutely, of
came up
course.
in this culture, and we've all aged. So even the listeners now at this point, once they kind of get through the stage of having that small child where you can't go out and go to shows, or you might not have as much
Yeah.
expendable money or whatever, they start to
Yeah.
come back and they're looking for stuff that feels authentic to them still from those days when they were back in it before. So yeah, it's important that we have all types of hip hop coming out. And
Yeah.
to get back to kind of your album Vigilante, and how times change and evolve, I wanted to ask, when you put that out, the Luigi Mangione thing hadn't happened,
Oh
right?
wow. Right.
And I mean, a lot of people would put him very much in that vigilante category.
Right.
Have you thought about that at all in comparison to kind of the vigilante image that you're talking about on the album? Because
Yeah.
you mentioned already that it's kind of a metaphor for taking people out from hip hop or whatever, more so than an actual
Well, yeah.
societal level vigilanteing that needs to be done necessarily. But I wanted to
Yeah, man.
hear
I
your
mean,
opinion there, man.
yeah, no, firstly, that's interesting to answer part of your question. No, I haven't been asked that before. And it's interesting that you bring it up because you could argue that that dude was a vigilante and snuffing a CEO. But I also think that you could use the word vigilante to describe a myriad of different ways to get back at someone who deserves it. That doesn't mean I'm going to agree with it all or think that it's right and
Sure.
just.
Yeah.
To be specific, like for example, using Dexter as an example, a fictional example. It just so happens that I've been rewatching the series for the first time because Original Sin came out, and now they're bringing back Dexter Resurrection. So as a fan of the show, I'm rewatching, going, Dexter did do a lot of foul shit in the midst of trying to do uh, right. And the truth is, the Dexter character himself, especially as I rewatch it and realize he ain't really about the whole doing right. He's simply following a code to not get caught. It just so happens that his code is taking out people who quote deserve it. So as a fan of the show, you're actually posed, the question is posed, do you agree? Do you root Dexter? Most people would, but there's
Right.
many cases where I'm like, bro, if this was real life, I can't get behind that. There are things that I can't get behind. But for me specifically, I can tell you that when I see things like, and these are things that I comment about either on the record or in its latest music video, Turn It Around, like the Ahmaud Arbery murder, the George Floyd murder,
Yeah.
the, the Sonia Massey murder, the Tamir Rice murder, like all of these things, these instances of injustice are beyond a shadow of a doubt. These all happen to be things caught on video. So we live in a world today where we're seeing it. That's the scary thing. I talked about social media and having time to like take it in on during COVID or what have you. Like we're seeing people die. It's not a story anymore. We see it for ourselves. And
Yeah.
what's worse is we get a section of the population telling us, no, that didn't happen. George Floyd wasn't murdered. Ahmaud Arbery wasn't murdered. That wasn't murder. And so now we have people who claim, in one instance, in one breath, they're so called pro life, but on this, they're pro murder. It all depends who's getting murdered.
Yeah.
And so I recognize hatred and racism for what it is. As a black man, as light skinned as I am, I can tell you that bearing witness to the obvious is not something that I'm willing to stand back and go, yeah, like I'm going to invite into my world this idea that all we're doing is talking about it. And that's why racism is alive and well. I say that and turn it around. There's this concept that just because we're talking about it, it's a thing. Everyone on the so called left, right? And I don't consider myself politically minded, but I consider myself someone with a moral compass.
Sure.
But it appears to me that people are placed in this category of being on the left when they speak out against injustice. So if you argue that Luigi Mangione's cause was to bring about justice to people who have been done wrong by insurance company, you can make that argument. I don't think in that instance a murder was like, let me put it to you this way. Again, since you're asking me a specific question about a literal murder, as a vigilante, or at least a person with this mindset as who's pro vigilantism, it is not about literal murder that I am a proponent of, right? I'm about doing right
Yeah.
and having those who do wrong be brought to justice. So metaphorically speaking, I'll even say, and I'm actually really proud of it, because in addition to it being my favorite album, it's my favorite album cover. I'm hanging a Klansman.
I was just
Now,
gonna
this
bring
is
it up,
not
man.
literal
Yeah.
murder. This
Yeah.
is a graphic design. You know what I'm saying? This is a concept. But do I believe in destroying racism? Of course. He's hanging from an AR-15. Do I believe in doing away with gun violence? Of course. Do I believe that we have a sort of obligation to society and to our kids, for that matter, to like raise them in a better place? Yeah, and I think certain shit needs to be murdered. So
Yeah.
these concepts that exist throughout the album, I wish to kill. Actual murder is not something I'm saying I agree with.
Very well said, man. Very,
Yeah,
very diplomatically put. I like that answer,
there you go.
start to finish, dude. It is something that we're seeing a rise of more and more. Even, you've got Kanye West running around dressed like a Klan member.
I call
But
him out on the album, as you
yeah,
know.
yeah, you definitely do.
Yeah,
And so, I don't really need to ask your opinion on him. He's, you discuss how he's kind of self-hating and working against his own people's interests
for
necessarily.
sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the crowd at this point would agree with you. Can I ask you about Kanye? Have you heard his new albums? Like, I personally checked out, I think 3 or 4 albums ago at this point, and I haven't even
Yeah,
listened
same.
to them. Like, which I used to love the guy's music. I can still
Same.
sit here and say, like, yo, when I was coming up, that was one of my favorite artists. He was fucking making jokes that made me laugh and saying things that
Absolutely.
felt like he was fighting for the little guy and,
Absolutely.
talking about stealing from the Gap and whatnot. Like,
Yeah,
I was with it.
for sure.
But I still see a lot of critics online talking about, like, oh, I had to listen just to check in. And I think, like, no, you didn't, man. Like, you didn't fucking need to
Right.
listen to it at all. Are you still checking on Kanye West, or?
Not at all. No,
Yeah.
I will not press play on anything Kanye. First of all, I don't like the shit that I've heard. So just from a music basis, I'm like, no, I'm done. But yeah, there's something just I not doesn't sit well with me to show him any support. It's very interesting. We live in a world where today all the metrics are shown to us. This
Yeah.
is an entirely different topic, but it ties in that you can see how many views a video has, how many likes a social media post has, how many listeners a Spotify account has. So Preston, I don't even want to be an extra, that one to add to it, because I'm so not down with him. I mean, he's
Yeah.
gotten exponentially worse since I wrote that song, Cleanse My Soul, featuring Master Ace and Century, by the way, shouts to them,
Yeah.
where I call out Kanye West on his self-hatred. He's fully wearing Klan suits in his interviews. Bro, I'm with you. I'm in a room where I have my music collection, my vinyls behind me. I got cassettes and CDs in front of me. I have Kanye's first 4 or 5, like big fan. That's one of the reasons, that's probably the reason why I decided to call him out specifically because A, I was a big fan, so I'm disappointed in a whole other way. B, um, and I say this in the song, our birthdays are 2 days apart
Right.
in the same year. And when I think about Kanye, and I think about, part of me was like, do I have the right to call Kanye out? I'm this little local Toronto rapper, and Kanye is this big superstar. And then I look at it not from the perspective of worldwide fame and wealth, but from the perspective of two human beings who have
Yeah.
an equal right to express their opinion. And I'm like, if I was born in Chicago or Kanye was born in Toronto, we might be friends. We might have gone to school together. This is a boy that I can speak to, like, Bridget, what is the deal? So
Right.
that's how I honestly wanted to approach it. It's like, you know what? You are not above me or below me in any way. And I feel the need to speak out to someone who has thoroughly disappointed me and continues to disappoint. And as I say in the song, man, like, he did fall from this throne. I referenced the Watch the Throne album. He fell because he was someone we looked up to. He
Yeah.
was someone we respected. He was someone who we saw as, a member of the team. And he completely let down not just his people, but so many others. And it's not something I can stand by. And it was just, I had to say my piece.
Yeah, yeah, Birdman. I appreciate that you did, and all of the business that you stand on across that album was stuff that I agreed with, and stuff that I
Respect.
think a lot more artists need to be saying. And
Thank you. Yeah,
I
man,
mean,
I agree.
I guess I shouldn't say they need to be saying it because I try to stay away from telling artists what they should or shouldn't be doing. Everybody should make
Right,
their own art how they want to, but
right.
I personally love that type of music. That was one of the things that drew me to hip hop in the first place, was the I guess you could say political aspects of it,
Yeah,
where it was speaking up for people who don't normally have much of a voice,
yeah,
and
man,
yeah, fighting back against kind of the powers that be.
for
Um,
sure.
right now, a lot of the powers that be have kind of shifted and gravitated towards these like social media platforms that are out there. And you also talk about kind of social media on a track called "Like We"
Yes,
on
sir.
Vigilante.
Yeah.
And you talk about like doing well, you talk about how it's not something that's your favorite, but I see you on IG, talking to your phone and giving
Of
people
course.
updates on what's going on. So it seems
Yeah.
like you accept that it's something an artist has to do. Is that something that's changed in the past year or however long it's been since you wrote that track?
Yeah.
um
Well,
or yeah, where do you fall on social media these days, man?
yeah. So to be clear, Like We is not a condemnation of social media itself. Like We is a condemnation of the way that some people use social media.
Sure.
So, you know, uh, in the song, I mean, I literally open with saying, I'm instantly interested in every inkling of your existence. No, I'm not. But Instagram gives you that impression. And so you show a lot of pics and vids, some
Yeah.
intimate, some ignorant, and some are illegitimate. But if it may boost your rep, you'll consider it worthy of posting. I say all of this because there's people who
Ours.
use social media. Thank you, sir. My respect.
Yeah.
I say all of this to say that people front on social media. A lot of social media is fake. A lot of people are using social media to portray images of themselves that are not real. If you're doing that, especially within the world of hip hop, I call whack. Because just the same way that we grew up in the 90s and we grew up in this hip hop culture, we stand on believing in authenticity and in being real and all that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of people now who will go to social media and base their worth on their likes and their followers, but have no skills. So that's basically part of the song. It's really a condemnation of MCs more than anybody, who you might be this rapper, but you really don't have bars. You don't perform live on stage. You can't rock the crowd. You have no real skills, but your social media blows up. Well, good for you. But in my world, that doesn't make you no real MC. So to answer the second part of that question, what we're doing right now, right? It's online, right? There's nothing wrong with two brothers talking hip hop and getting it out to the world, letting
Yeah.
them know there's new music for them to check out and having a discussion about the content. This is great. Social media can and should be used for a lot of good shit. But when you're not, that's the stuff that I call out. So for me, what I'm trying to do is recognize that yes, social media is necessary. So especially for this Vigilante album, more than ever before, yeah, I have been posting whatever little things I wish to express to the world on social media. I even look at the way in which we consume music. We consume music now through Spotify and Apple and also through Instagram and YouTube and stuff. So how we get music is on social media.
Yeah.
Social Spotify in and of itself is almost like a social media platform because there are accounts. You can see who's following them, how many spins a song gets. So recognizing that that's how people attain their music, I have no choice but to go, okay, what emphasis am I going to put on my social media marketing? How much money, time, and energy am I going to spend in using the internet in general to push this record? I could stay old school, and yes, it's pressed to wax, right? So there's that old school in me. Yes, you can buy Vigilante on wax and CD, but do I need to get people streaming? Do I need to use social media to know that this album out? Absolutely. So I have no hate for social media, but I use it in a way that's authentic and real to me, and that's all I'm requesting of people who are out there because you know some of y'all are fronting, and
That's a
so
big
that's what that
message,
song's
man.
about.
Yeah, it used to be, and I can even remember myself making the argument to defend some gangster rap about like, well, yeah, but if that's the life that these guys are living, let them talk about it. Share that to the world.
Yeah, I actually I stand on that too. Listen, I grew up on NWA.
Yeah,
It didn't make me a gangster. It made me realize, yo, they've been through some shit.
but
You
I think
know,
at this point, you got a lot of guys who, like you said, are promoting that without
exactly.
actually necessarily living that
That's right.
life. And
And we see it, man. Social
yeah,
media is funny enough also is used to call out people on social media. Like we see people who've been caught out there, pretending that it's their car, or
right,
the funny way in which they make videos, someone like throwing some money off of a roof, and like they don't really have it, but that's the image they want to portray, and social
right.
media kind of outed y'all on that. So it's funny. And that's basically what the song's about, specifically because shouts to Blessed, of course, who absolutely blessed the track,
Joe
and shouts
Puck.
out a
Yeah,
whole bunch of Toronto legends who came up in a world where there was no social media. And that's the point he's making, is that you're not bad like we, because we came up, we did not have any kind of social media. We went out there, we wrote the best rhymes we could. We entered into ciphers. We freestyled. I performed at talent shows. I got in battles. I opened up for artists. Like the grassroots way of becoming an MC who had some sort of notoriety had nothing to do with how I portrayed myself online. So that's just basically the point we're making, and shouting out everybody who came up in that era and deserves their flowers.
yeah. I like that track a lot, man. That was one of the ones I played on ATSIC earlier, I think
Respect.
last season or something. But
Thank you.
I did want to ask you, dude. So, it's a very heated political landscape right now, and you kind of already have said that like you don't consider yourself to be like a political artist or
Right.
necessarily, but there's definitely some political talk on here, especially now that we're in a world where like half of the political spectrum is going to call you woke if you
Right.
fucking want equality for everybody, or like
Right.
if
Exactly.
you stand up against police brutality or any
Imagine a
other number of
world.
topics, right? Like
Imagine a world where we have to defend ourselves against wanting equality and not wanting
yeah,
people to be murdered by cops. Like imagine that's a bad thing.
I
And
can't
and
wrap my
and
mind around it, man. They still will hate on somebody and call people woke, but it's like, so are you admitting you're asleep? Like,
right.
what's the
Thank you.
opposite of woke, right?
Thank you for that.
uh,
Thank you for that. While I haven't put pen to paper about that specific topic, I think I'm going to have to, because you make such a good point in that people, first of all, have no idea about the historical, even the coining of the term woke.
sure.
But to keep things simple, it's being awake, it's being aware, it's understanding that there is injustice and inequality and wanting to bring about change. So now when people subvert it, change it, and try to use the word woke as a negative term, oh, woke this and woke that, you're being too woke. It's like, so you're saying that I want too much good things to happen to people? Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy to me that there is, and so to go to where you're going with this politically, right? The right is using the word woke to get their base to be like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, we're not down with any of that woke stuff. And when you use woke as a negative term, you automatically lose me. So this is why I say that I'm not political, even though I am, because I stand on a side, as I've continued to say, of justice, equality, equal rights. I stand on that.
Yeah.
If they have made that political and therefore consider me so called liberal or on the left because I stand on that, then so be it. Call me what you want. I don't believe in right and left. I believe in right and wrong. And I believe there's a lot of shit that's just motherfucking wrong coming out the mouth of Donald Trump and his cult followers.
Yeah.
So I speak on it, and in my most recent video, Turn It Around, which respectfully I think is being slept on. So if you want to check me, anybody out there watching this right now, if you want to see my music videos, the first one you should check out is Turn It Around. It just dropped in January with Century. And that's my anti-racism song on the album. In
Yeah.
fact, I consider it the heart of Vigilante because it speaks so brazenly, really, or staunchly against racism, and I speak out on Trump and the like.
Right. That's the
And there's
track
so
with
much.
the bar about like being misled by that orange human or something along
Correct.
those lines. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I played that
Yeah.
one recently on that a
Yeah,
couple
you
weeks ago, I
people
think.
kept your
Yeah.
brains in a storage unit listening to that orange human
There
and
it is.
only accomplished enormous, rumen, incompetent, pompous, and stupid.
Yeah.
Fox News is as good as a burning cross of nooses. Your rhetoric so abusive. You're fucking useless.
Boom.
Straight up.
Yeah, man. So have you, in the time since that album dropped, or with this new video kind of going online right now at this very heated time, like we're in the middle of a federal election where we're kind of
Yes.
deciding whether our country does the same thing as they just
I
did,
know.
right?
I
So
know.
have you, did you worry about like, oh, I'm going to alienate half the audience? Because I know a lot of artists who have answered my political questions by saying, oh no, I just try to keep politics out of my music, make music for
Right.
people to have a good time or whatever.
Right.
Because, you know, nobody wants to lose half the crowd and lose half of the potential customers who
Yeah.
might support them, right? Have you
know
had
what?
any backlash or thought about that backlash?
Not as much as you might think. Has there been any disagreements, quote, or slash debates? Absolutely, there has. But I'm going to answer your question the way Larry David answered a question when he was asked about an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm that was put out in the last season or season before, where he used the MAGA hat as a source of staving people away because he realized that people didn't want to be around people. So
Yeah.
because Larry is anyone who's a Curb fan, is maybe my favorite show, it knows he's staunchly on the left. So
Very
he was asked
antisocial. He doesn't want people talking to him. So
all
I
of
haven't
it.
actually seen the newest ones, but yeah, I
Okay. Oh,
imagine he put
it's
on the MAGA
brilliant.
hat
It's
to keep
brilliant.
people away, right?
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's wrapped up. It's 12 seasons, over 24 years. Incredible show.
Yeah.
Even better than Seinfeld. That being said, when he was asked if he was worried about alienating approximately half of his potential audience because of the concept of that particular episode, but some of the themes throughout
Sure.
his shows, Larry David's answer was simple. He goes, I could give a fuck. And I laughed, and the audience laughed, and we knew he literally said, he even says, this is classic Larry David. He's like, go ahead and alienate. If you, I'm not alienate. If you want to alienate yourselves, alienate away. Like, I don't give a fuck. And
Yeah.
and Larry doesn't, probably because he's this multimillionaire. He does. Who cares?
He's made his
right?
money. He'll be okay. Yeah.
I think the same way for almost an opposite reason. Like, I have nothing to lose. Let's be
Right.
honest. If you are a Daniel fan already, I'd be shocked if you stood against the shit that I stand for. And if you do stand on that and you're no longer a Daniel fan, to hell with you. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
I really
I'd go
don't.
even
I'm
wider
not
than that.
losing anything.
Bro, I'd go even wider than that and say if you're a hip hop fan and
Thank you.
you're only now coming around to the idea that like, oh, you mean hip hop is against what MAGA stands for? Like,
Thank you, bro.
you've been asleep. You've been. It's like people who are waking up to the idea that Rage Against the Machine isn't a conservative band or whatever, right? Like,
Bro, people still haven't woken up to the fact that Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA is not a flag waving anthem for the country. It's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
It's speaking out against horseshit. So I love that you just said that, because I think that's one of the most important things to even get out of this entire interview is that hip hop itself, hip hop culture, first of all, it's Black culture.
Yeah.
We've brought everybody into it all over the world. But think about where it came from originally. Even if you just want to go back to some of the earliest records, we're speaking The Message, for example, speaking out against poverty, police brutality, the downtrodden communities that need to rise up. So if you really think, and again, we
Dude.
talked earlier about
Sorry,
Public
just to
Enemy.
interject here, I heard
Yeah,
KRS-One's "Sound of the Police"
KRS-One.
just a couple days ago, and
Right,
that was 1987, and that dude
right,
was out there talking about there will never be justice on stolen land. Like
right.
he was standing on business in 1987 about stuff that people are still trying to push today and are
Yeah.
still having this pushback, like, oh, that's woke thinking or whatever, and it's like,
Dude, you're
uh,
exactly right. If you're
yeah,
if you're referring to Sound of the Police, I believe that's Return of the Boom Bap from '93, but his first album in '87 didn't stand for the bullshit either. Boogie Down Productions, X Clan, Public Enemy, Intelligent Hoodlum. Man, the list goes on and on. Queen Latifah, they all had something to say from that word long before we were using the word woke
yeah,
and even thought that Donald Trump would become president. That is what hip hop was all about. So those debates slash arguments that I mentioned earlier, yeah, there's people out there, and I put out a post about this, who are so-called hip hop. You claim you're hip hop. You write rhymes or you make beats or you're whoever you happen to be, and you come with this fucking right-wing nonsense, which is so anti the vast majority of the culture you claim to represent. So one of my recent posts did speak on that and say, you're not hip hop.
yeah.
If that's how you I'll speak on behalf of hip hop and say you don't belong if you stand on that bullshit. Tom McDonald's fucking Rosa and Bar song, that's the furthest thing from hip hop culture
Ugh.
possible. You're
Yeah, man.
disrespecting the entire culture, bro.
That dude's just
Uh,
grifting, man. He's like the
well, that's what it
podcasters.
is.
Just it's easier to get money out of that right wing, I guess.
Look,
So
man,
they do what they
exactly.
do, right? But yeah,
Exactly. And listen, hip hop also has long been a culture and an art form where we police ourselves. That's why we battle. That's why there are diss records. If you say some shit I don't like, I might say something about it on a record. So listen, I'll stand on that too. Say what you're going to say. You said it earlier. Everyone has the right to their opinion. You want to express it, go for it. But just the same, I have the right to express mine. So I'll do it on a record, I'll do it on a podcast, and I will continue to do it in my real life.
yeah,
And so that to me, as far as I'm concerned, everything I've ever learned, everything I've ever stood for and believed in is that's what hip hop's representative of. Is it's a variety of art forms and elements under the umbrella of hip hop culture that enables you to be yourself, to
yeah,
stand on game and like represent who you are, where you're from, what you're about. Don't bite, right? Don't bite rhymes. Don't try to emulate a style. Be you. That's always been part of hip hop. So why we can't come out and say, yo, fine, you want to stand for that, so be it. But we say you don't belong. And I completely stand for that, man. You can't enter black culture and start telling black people some shit
definitely,
that's
man.
basically hurtful to the culture. It just doesn't make any sense. That's not hip hop at all.
Thank you for coming on here and saying it with authority and some bass in your tone,
With
because
my chest, for
yeah,
sure.
hell yeah, right? Because I have grown up in Alberta as a white guy who loves hip hop. I've been around plenty of people who fucking
Yeah.
claim hip hop, and then they have these views and beliefs, and I just kind of am like, no,
Right.
that isn't the hip hop I'm talking about. If I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm gonna
Yeah,
do my
man.
thing over here instead. It's
Well, let me just
uh,
thank you publicly for that, man. Because like I said, hip hop invites everybody, but it's
word.
so important for everybody who's invited to the table to be respectful when they're sitting down at it, sharing bread with us. And I appreciate you and so many people like you who understand hip hop, who love hip hop, who respect hip hop, and in doing so, respect the people who created this culture, the ethnicities of people who bred this whole thing. And that's so huge. So
Yeah,
much
for real,
love
man.
for them.
Thanks, dude. So can we talk about how did you land that Master Ace feature on this new album?
Yeah,
Like, how did that come together?
sure, man. Well, first and foremost, I got to shout out my brother Wordsworth. Wordsworth is incredible Brooklyn MC, man. He's in a group with Master Ace called EMC with him and Strickland. And as fellow Brooklyn MCs, I know Wordsworth and Master Ace have been down for a while. I was originally introduced to Wordsworth through a show we did, man, more than I don't know how many, a decade and a half ago, maybe. And then he appeared on the Perfect Strangers album. So shouts to my cousin Promise. We did an album together. And he had Wordsworth on a joint called Dreams that we recorded and then shot a video for. Wordsworth has always been crazy cool. So when I shouted him to do a song, by the way, it's called Born to Be on the Day It All Changed album, which is also an anti-Trump type of song. We just stayed cool, and Wordsworth and I have been cool. So in doing this next Vigilante album, I was like, yo, I really, I want to get big feature on this. I want to cross some bucket list wants off. Socrates was one of them. Fellow Toronto and Scarborough guy and a brethren of mine, but I'd never done a record with him. Had to do it.
Sober Sunday, right? That's the one with
Sober
him.
Sunday,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And Master Ace is on that list. So I'm like, Words and Master Ace are boys. I'm like, Words, I'd love to get Ace on the album, man. Do you think, how can I go about this? He hit me with his contacts, and I simply hit up Ace. And shouts to Master Ace, not just being for the incredible legend that you are, but being such a dope dude and a professional. Because when we went back and forth, he was just really cool about the entire process, was professional about it, but really cool about it. And it was very simple. I dropped him exactly what I was looking for from the track, what the concept was, gave him some options. He selected his favorite and made it happen. And Cleanse My Soul was born of that. But I actually have Words to thank for connecting us. That being said, I have met Master Ace a couple of times. So when I hit him up, I was like, we're in a picture together. I'm like, remember
Yeah.
me?
Wasn't
Whether
a
you do
cold
or
call
not, I'm Words'
necessarily.
boy, and I want to do this record with you. And he was
Sure.
mad cool about it. Yeah.
Nice, man. So that was far from the only feature that you had on the album, though. You did the Barsman track
Yeah,
on the album originally, and then there was a remix.
Yes.
That's like one of the biggest, Canadian posse cuts. I love posse
Yes,
cuts,
sir.
by the way, too. So
Me too.
shouts to you for doing that, putting the cipher together. But I wanted to go through the artists on that list and have you.
Sure.
Can you just tell me, how you met them or how
Yeah.
they came onto your radar? So Lotus James was the first name on the remix.
Yeah, so Lotus James is one of two winners, so I can answer both him and Sonny Hendricks.
Okay.
Two winners of the Barsman Challenge. Shouts to my man Chris Got Rocks, aka Joe, who helped me as a project manager and gave me the idea. It was like, you should do a Barsman Challenge. So I'll get to the original Barsman in a minute, but as far as the bigger posse cut is concerned, I just put out, we talked about social media earlier.
Yeah.
That's how I decided to use social media to promote this album. Yo, I got a record called Barsman. I want some MCs to spit on this beat. So download it, and I'm going to choose my favorite MCs to be part of the remix. Lotus James and Sonny Hendricks just happened to be two MCs who entered that contest and blew me away with the bars, man. So Barsman was just a very simple concept that I created. It's the same as saying lyricist, dope MC. Well, if you got bars, you're a barsman to me. Or, of course, a bars woman. Shouts to the ladies, obviously. So the first two MCs to appear after me on the cut are the contest winners.
Sure. Okay. So how many entries did you get for that? I remember now that you mentioned it,
Man.
seeing that promo on Instagram. That's a
Yeah.
great way to do it, man. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good. Again, just for me, a great way to use social media, in my opinion. It was really dope. A lot of dope submissions, dozens and dozens. I don't know the
Nice.
exact number, but
Yeah.
there was a ton to choose from, and it was hard. A lot of people can spit, but I guess it was just a certain type of sound that I thought fit the record, that really fit the beat. I actually did want to choose people I hadn't met before. I
Right.
didn't want to be biased and choose friends. I wanted winners of the contest to be like totally new to me. And I've since checked out their music, and they're both really sick. So they had to go on it, and I also had a kind of mandate to just like put on some MCs, like help them out, give them a push, and like let's collaborate. We've never collaborated before. You sound dope. Let's go.
These are all Canadian artists, though, right? Did you get any American entries? Was anybody from America involved?
I believe a couple came through.
Okay.
But it just sort of turned out, and I'm being honest, no bias. It just turned out like I just wanted to. I had people already part of the song, right? And people that I invited to be part of the song.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be biased and say, because they're American or because they're Canadian, that's the reason I'm choosing. Of course, they were mostly Canadian submissions.
I mean, I wouldn't hold it against you if that was the reasoning, man. On After the Smoke is Clear, I play 100% Canadian hip hop every week. You know, that's I put a big Boycott America logo on there since the recent stuff happens. So
I guess we kind of have to now, right?
I'm really standing on the Canadian stuff here. But,
yeah. Well, I stand with allies too, because we got to remember that about that half population we were talking about.
Sure.
Half of them are with us. Half
Yeah.
of them they're showing their support. So
Yeah,
it's
for
all
real.
love. I have zero problems with Americans. I have problems with bad people
And of course,
on both sides
in
of the border,
actuality,
worldwide.
I'm same boat as you. I know
Yeah, of
that there's
course,
all
I know.
sorts of good Americans, but really, it's just the
Yeah,
Canadian hip hop scene needs so much more representation. And I was like,
for
shit,
sure.
there's so much music to pick through. I'm going 100% Canadian and using that as
Yeah.
the selling
Well,
point. Which,
listen, I have absolutely no problem waving the Canadian flag in the world of hip hop.
yeah,
So, to continue with answering your question, like the original Barsman, I actually hollered at a lot of people for this album, but it just so turns out that so Decisive, dude, I've been down with a long time, came with some crazy bars. He even entered the Barsman challenge even after being on the song. So it's
with a second
hilarious.
verse.
With a second verse.
Okay,
Yeah, with a
yeah.
second verse. But I really love the original verse. Shouts to Quake Matthews. So I met him on a tour stop in Halifax. That's where he's from. Shouts to my man Jay Morris, who brought us on the road for the hip hop food drive tour in the end of 2022. So I met Quake Matthews, mad cool dude, mad talented dude. We got up. He was like, "We got to do a track." So I'm like, "Let's go." So I sent him, just like I did with Sox and Master Ace, a few to choose from, and that ended up being the one he was on. And I'm like, "Great," because that's going to be, it's a Barsman thing. Jay Schiltz deserves his flowers. He just put out an album called Forever the Artist.
Is he a
He
newer
represents.
artist? I've seen dude's name around and played his music on
He's
Atzik, but I don't know much about him, honestly. Where
okay.
did he come from?
Yeah, man, he's a Toronto dude, originally Mississauga, super dope MC. He's not a member of Monolith, but he may as well be because Jay Schiltz holds the record for the non-Monolith member who's done the most songs with Monolith members.
Okay.
So if you go and check him out online, whatever, he's got albums going back years featuring everybody from the crew. From Corey D's to Nish to Wild to Grimace to you name it, Rashard. We've all worked with him. I actually happen to be one of the last Monolith members dude worked with. So he just put out a video called 92 Blue Jays. Anybody who knows me knows how big a Blue Jays fan I am. And he knew that and was like, "This is the track for you." So we got on this joint called 92 Blue Jays, filmed the video at a Blue Jays game. It is out now. It's from his album, Forever the Artist. The album is produced entirely by Charisma, aka Skiz, who is a member of Monolith. He produced half my album. He produced all of The Day It All Changed. So it's all family. So
Yeah.
Jay Shields got on the track because he's pretty much family. We did songs on each other's album, and I got him on Herbnet. So shouts to Herbnet, who put out both Vigilante and Forever the Artist. It just was one of those like on the same gang type things to bring him on
Now
the
that you
track.
mention it, that 92 Blue Jays was actually a track that as soon as I heard it, I bought and played on Atzik when that dropped or whatever. So yeah, definitely
Dope.
shouts to Jay Schiltz. That
Yeah,
entire
man.
project was dope.
Yeah.
I just booked Quake Matthews this morning. I'm talking to
Great.
him May 20th. So anybody who's watching
Good.
can come back for that one. May 20th. Looking forward to
Yes,
talking to
sir.
him.
Yeah,
A
man. And
couple
listen,
more names on this mix. Oh,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead, though.
I have to shout the ladies, right? Because I knew when I was doing the remix, I said, look, I named the track Barsman, a man who has bars, but of course, ladies got bars too. So Eternia and I go back decades. She's one of my best friends in the game, one of the sweetest people I know, and she's got bars. She
Yeah.
is so dope and always has been. So she was an automatic. Like we've worked together before. She had to get on the track.
She's Montreal
Um,
based, right? Is she one of the
no,
few artists on there that's not in Toronto, or?
she's originally from Ottawa, but
Okay.
she then became Toronto based and is now actually in the States. Shouts to her and her partner, Mr. Liff.
Right.
So she's stateside now, but represents
Okay.
Toronto, originally Ottawa. So she
Sure.
counts. She's one of us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And super huge love to Keisha Fresh and Phoenix Pagliacci, the other bars women on the song. Also, two people I've known a while, super, super cool. And I have to tell you the truth, at this stage of the game, for me, it's not just a matter of how talented you are, because unquestionably, I want to work with talented artists.
Yeah.
But if you cool, we're gonna work. I've also been through enough and been doing this long enough to work with people who actually not work with people who are not the type to return a phone call, a text message, or an email, who make it difficult. You know what I'm saying? Stateside too. I've tried to, whether I'm getting a feature or whoever you are, I've worked with certain people who I won't work again because of how they carry on in a personal way. So everybody on the track, it's all love. Grimace Love is a member of the Mighty Monolith. He spit ill bars. So it's all family. And it's a really cool mix of artists that I've met in different ways at different times for different reasons. And by the way, originally the idea was to do a Barsmen remix and a Bars Women remix.
Okay.
And it just so happened that I decided, you know what, this is going to be a lot cooler. Instead of doing three songs that kind of sound the same, let's amalgamate all the people that are in the record or who submitted verses into one. So we took out the chorus, we took out the intro and outro. It's 5 minutes of fire, 10 MCs, nothing but bars. And yes, one of my favorite posse cuts. And
For real.
yeah, something I'm very proud of.
Nice, man. Can I ask you about the track with Socrates, Sober Sunday? Do you actually
Sure,
take
man.
Sundays off as a sober day? I know, as a guy who smokes a lot of weed myself, you know, that 1 day tolerance break can do a lot, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny, you know, I was asked about that by, actually, it was on an American podcast, and I think they were half jokingly saying, oh, you know, do you have to be sober on Sundays? And I'm like, you're taking it a little too literally.
Right.
The concept of sober Sunday, it's almost like, you know, we talked about woke earlier. Like, to be sober is to be clear of mind.
Sure. Yeah.
And that song ends the album. As I told you earlier, if Vigilante is technically a story. It ends the album because I'm paying tribute to my folks. I have immigrant parents, a Jamaican mother and a Spanish father, who I lost. So it's a tribute to my dad and my mom. It's a shout out to my ethnicity. It's a shout out to the support they've given me. On the album, you'll hear me deal with some personal issues. My mom helped me through that, and I say so in the song. Throughout the album, I also deal with professional issues. My dad helped me with. He was a supporter. My dad's been in 2 of my music videos. He's on my first album. Like, he
Yeah.
supported me. You know what I'm saying? So those different relationships I had with each parent is just something that I felt was something I should tribute. And I actually have to shout Socrates for really coming up with that concept, because I gave him the concept of the album. But Sober Sunday is special in that it's the only song on the album where the chorus was written first. I wrote every other song. All the lyrics were penned before we came up with whatever the hook was going to be, or before I found the artist to be on it and add to it.
That's an interesting process, man. Is that usual for you? Do you always write the bars first, or throughout your career have you?
I would say, you know, it depends on the song. I would say probably most. Why? Another reason why I think Vigilante is my best album is I let the masters handle their job, right? The producers, big shouts to Big Sprox, Charisma, and Sky the Cook and Jax from Japan. That's what they do best. So they produce the beats. The hook writers of this album, that's what they do best. Century, Socrates, Blessed, you know, my man Hart from out in Calgary, super dope vocalist. And so I had written songs knowing, as I talked to you earlier, about the concepts. I was very strong about what the concepts were going to be. So before Like We was Like We, it was called the social media joint. One
Right.
song was called the racism joint,
Sure.
the self-hate joint, the jealousy joint. That's what they were called until they got hooks. And I'm like, well, that's
Working title, right? Yeah.
Yeah, working title. Not even, just like I knew what they were about. And but with Socrates, I knew, first of all, I needed his voice. I needed his soulfulness. I said, here's what the album is about. Here's what I want to do. He came back with a hook, and then, as humble as he was, he's like, can I do more? I'm like, yeah, do more than a hook if you want. So he wrote the intro verse, and he shouts out his mom, dad, wife, and son, and that set the tone for who I was going to shout out in my verses. So shouts to him for really, again, giving thanks and tribute to his loved ones. That helped me write what I wrote about. That's what Sober Sunday is all about.
Right.
Drink on Sunday if you want, y'all, but
Yeah,
you know, showing love to who deserves it is really what it all came down to. And I think maybe my favorite song, because again, you can't deny the soulfulness of Socrates, but an important one for me. And I was able to shoot the video and pay tribute to my mom and my dad in that video. So it's a big one for me, an important one for me. And I thought the perfect way to end off my album.
Right on, man. So you shouted out your parents on that track, and just now you told us about how important they have been kind of in your life and career.
Yeah.
One of the things that I read about you, kind of just doing some homework about this interview, was that you apparently got your start on Electric Circus on Much Music at some
Yeah.
sort of rap contest at like age 13 or
Yeah.
something. So I
Yes,
actually
sir.
wanted to ask about like, was that must have been something your parents kind of helped you with, right? At age 13, I don't imagine you're knocking on the door yourself, or like how did
Mm.
that come together?
No, it's funny you should ask it in that way because I've never been asked. I've been asked about that a lot, but not in that way. My parents, when I was 13, my parents were not about this rap shit. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? They're like, get good grades in school and stuff, which I did. So I think I never really gave them a good reason to be opposed to this rap shit. You know what I'm
sure.
saying? That was solely independent. I'll tell you how that worked out. I was just a kid in elementary school who would go to birthday parties and rap. And at these birthday parties, I'd rap for my friends or the birthday person, whoever. And shouts to my man Lindo P, who DJ'd some of these parties. Lindo P is a few years older than me, also a reggae artist. I didn't even know it at the time. He just happened to be the DJ at the parties. Heard me rap and was like, yo, dude, you got skills. He brought me to his house. He would cut on the ones and twos, and we didn't even have beats, bro. So all we did was he would take a beat from a record and he would bring it back and forth, and I would rap over it.
Damn.
We used that a song called Can't Test Me as a submission. I submitted it to Electric Circus on cassette. So to bring everybody up to speed, this is the oldest footage that I'm aware of that's available anywhere on earth. It's on YouTube. It's called Can't Test Me. Danny O and Lindo P, Partners in Rhyme was the name of our group. We're on Electric Circus, which was a dance show on Saturday afternoons, a live dance show. And they had a rap off contest. The winner was going to get tickets to an LL Cool J concert. I knew this was the second rap contest that Electric Circus had. I knew that the winner of the first one, it was an MC Hammer contest. His name is Frank Morel. He put out a music video and was like, yo, the last guy who won the contest, he's making records now. So I'm like, I gotta do this. And that's where it all came from.
Nice,
I
man.
was obviously chosen to appear actually at a club the night before the live show against, it was 10 artists in total. They chose two from the 10. Those two, Gifted in Black, shouts to my man Gab, Gifted in Black, and Partners in Rhyme were essentially chosen to be on TV the following day. We went head to head. We won. And that's basically how I got my start in the game. I
Nice,
started
man.
performing everywhere and just sort of making a name for myself starting then.
People don't know, or they forget how important like Much Music was for the Canadian
Oh,
hip hop
yeah.
scene back in the day,
Huge.
with both Electric Circus being like you said, a dance show or whatever. It was pretty
Yeah.
much like they'd walk through a club with a camera and just show different people dancing to the songs or
That's
whatever.
exactly right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
In the
then
middle of the afternoon.
yeah, and then Rap City was where I heard a lot of different artists for the first time, just and
Same.
saw music videos there or whatever.
Same.
Did that first Electric Circus gig help you the same way that it helped the other guy you mentioned, that to get you in the door a little bit? Because I know your first single did pretty well, Dear Hip Hop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're referring to Lindo P, he's a legend. He's still but he's in the Like We music video. So if you watch the Like We music video, Blessed, who I actually met through Lindo P, shouts out Lindo. Lindo came to the shoot, which is great. We show the footage of us on Electric Circus, and then it shows us present day. That makes me really happy and proud because I owe him a debt of gratitude for getting me on. He was a very successful DJ. Anybody in Toronto, certainly in the reggae scene, knows all about Lindo. He's worked with artists like Cardinal and Socrates as well, so there's records out there with him on it. And of course, I obviously went the hip hop route,
Sure.
and yeah, 5 years later, my debut, Dear Hip Hop, dropped on Rap Essentials Volume 1. And that's how most people know of me as far as the so called start of my career. My recording career, anyways,
Sure.
is represented by that song and eventually that album. Yeah, it was like 18, man, when it dropped. And I owe Beat Factory and everybody at Beat Factory a debt of gratitude too, because being put on that compilation, being put on the nationwide tour, that's where I really got the push to become recognized as an artist worth paying attention to. So, although I'm still on my grind all these years later, that's really what got me going.
I wanted to ask you about just the concept of kind of like writing a letter to hip hop. I know you
Yeah,
did a part two of it on an updated version, I think 20 years after or whatever.
yeah,
And it's something that I hear a lot of different artists do, right? It's become kind of a lane in hip hop, like a trope in hip hop or whatever, that a lot of people will write that letter to hip hop, whether it's
Right.
to, declare their love for it, like
Yeah.
comment on, I used to love
Yeah,
her, or
for sure.
whether it's to tell it kind of where it went wrong, like Nas on hip
Yeah.
hop is dead or whatever. Like there's a
Right.
lot of examples, but listening to indie rappers, it's something a lot of indie rappers do, and I'm listening to 7 or 8 hours worth of it every week, so I
Wow,
hear
man.
almost one a week where there's a,
Yeah.
a new person writing their letter to hip hop. And I wanted to ask, like, why do you think that's such a prevalent thing, like that hip hop is every MC's kind of pen pal almost, and
Yeah.
will you
Nice
continue to
way of
write
putting
letters
it.
to hip hop?
Well, I can, speaking for myself, I was 17 when I
Yeah,
wrote it. I have to shout out Scam. Huge shout outs to my man Scam, who produced the joint. I would go to Scam's house and we would have these pre-production sessions where he would play me beats he had made, and I would select some, I would write lyrics to them. I'd go back to his house and we'd arrange them before getting in the studio. He made them on the SP 1200. Google that, people, if you don't know what I'm talking about. This old school beat machine, and you could arrange on it. So, make sure, you had enough space for all the lyrics and do dropouts and stuff. And it was really cool. We used to work together like that. He sampled Ramsey Lewis's The Look of Love, which is this beautiful piano loop. And I remember thinking when I heard it, I love this, but it kind of sounds like a love song. And at 17 years of age, I really wasn't in love yet.
sure.
I didn't really have like the love of my life to speak on yet. We talked earlier about growth and experiences, didn't have them yet.
Yeah,
Messing around with girls in my school wasn't really the type of song that I thought fit. I'm like, what do I love? Who do I really love? And hip hop, right? I was like, so I was gonna write this love song to hip hop, and I thought, nah, that doesn't feel exactly what I want to do. So I made hip hop my boy. Throughout the song, I refer to him as my brethren or my bro, and I looked at it like, yeah, my boys. Like I got boys. I'm part of a crew. Like this feels like if hip hop was part of my crew, or if he was one of my brethren, like how would I speak to him?
right.
And to a
Yeah,
second part answer that question, yeah, as MCs, we feel like we owe hip hop this kind of I'm going to do right by you, right? It's not just a cult. It is a culture to us. It's not just like in today's world, you can view hip hop or music in general as a get rich quick scheme. If I
right.
put out a hot joint, I could blow up. Back then, I always quote PMD from Crossover when he said, "Still, I haven't seen one rapper living comfortably." Well, that was in 92. Today, we've seen a lot of rappers living comfortably. But back then, that wasn't the reason, right? You didn't start writing rhymes as a seven or when I was, 10 years old. I wasn't writing rhymes because I'm like, I'm going to be rich and famous. I really loved it. And
Right.
that was the point. That's what I was telling hip hop. I see a lot of other people using you this way: losers, abusers, the stereotypes. I say all that in the song. But as a 17-year-old kid, I was like, let me just tell my boy how, I got so much love for you. I'm going to do right by you. We're going to, and I'm actually really funny story in a way. The same day that I recorded Dear Hip Hop with Scam, and by the way, shouts to Frankenstein who recorded and mixed it. I also recorded a song with Scam at same session called Constipated. Now, Constipated is a euphemism for wanting to drop my shit. At 17 years old, all I rapped about was wanting to put out a record. I've never put out a record before. I can't wait to drop my shit. So Constipated is this song, like that's what it was about. When Rap Essentials was coming around and Beat Factory hollered at us and was like, you can submit a song for this compilation. My manager at the time and I were choosing between Dear Hip Hop and Constipated. And we were like, Constipated's kind of a harder hitting track. Maybe we'll go with that. And he's like, you know what? Why don't we use that as your follow up? Because it's a so called stronger track. And that was the thinking. Ridiculous thinking. Because clearly, Dear Hip Hop became, and I'm thankful for this, became this classic because it spoke to everybody who felt the same way as me. I just love hip
Right.
hop. I want. And so all these years later, being known as the Dear Hip Hop guy just has a much better ring to it than being known as the constipated guy. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to say this because they're almost sold out. So for anybody who's a fan, or maybe you're becoming a new fan, to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the song, Dear Hip Hop was released as a 7-inch vinyl single. And the B side is Constipated. And on the back of the record is the whole story that I just told you. So you can get Dear Hip Hop and Constipated on this single. There are very few left and can be only ordered online. So go to danio.com if you want one.
Hell yes, man. So dude, we just hit the 1 hour mark. Do you got another 15, 20 minutes to talk?
Sure, we
Still
can
good?
do that.
Okay, man. Okay, because I like to do a segment called "How Important Is," and it's more just conversation starter about you know, how important is this or that. So you can be brief or long-winded with these,
Sure.
but yeah, how important is making music videos these days?
I think it's huge. I think it's hugely important because just like one of the themes we've been discussing throughout this interview, social media. Where did we buy music? Where did we get music back in the day? You go to the record store, HMV, whatever. Where do you get music now? It's no longer turning on much music and waiting for it to come on Rap City or something. It's social media, it's YouTube, it's Instagram. So yeah, it's all part of how you're going to get your audience to consume your music. You got to put visuals to it. I'm a big proponent for music videos. Of course,
Yeah.
I also grew up watching them and taping them and being a fan. So I still think they're super important.
Yeah, at least the you know, 30-second, 1 minute long clips. You got to
Well,
have something that puts your
exactly.
face to the music, right?
That's exactly the point. So even though I'll do full length music videos for my songs, to your point, yes, clips online, social media, new album, new single. Even this interview, brother, we started talking about how Vigilante came out almost a year ago.
Yeah.
Thanks to you, I know there will be people hearing about it for the first time.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
between podcasts, interviews, music videos, I all believe they go in the similar category of another piece of content to distribute to the world via social media and other ways.
For real. How about how important is getting grants for a Canadian artist?
Massive, also. Let's be honest. The vast majority of us indie artists um, need the money. I can tell you right now, and I may as well shout them because they deserve it. Both the Toronto Arts Council and the Ontario Arts Council supported Vigilante. Albertans, of course, can't get those grants, but I'm sure you have your own.
We have our own provincial ones, yeah,
You got
and
your own
city
ones, yeah.
ones.
It's huge, man, and I believe so strongly in them, man. There's a lot of. I don't have to tell you this. There's a lot of really talented artists from right here in Canada,
Yeah.
but we don't have the money or the infrastructure the way they do in the States, which is a much larger country population-wise. So there's a lot more money being poured into the country. We just know how it works.
You just can't tour as much here, right? There's just not as many places to go do a show as there are in the States, I think.
For all the reasons that make us a smaller country, and to your point, population-wise, we're a smaller country, so there's smaller everything.
Yeah.
That's it. The numbers are smaller. So what money we put into our music, we are generally not making back in the traditional way that we would be making them back, i.e., selling records. You don't really sell music now. You become the product. The music becomes the commercial for the product. So if you're booking gigs, like when I do shows, host events, teach my classes, all of that stuff, I'm earning money as Danny O. Without the music, there's less of a reason to hire me. That's how it's done. So do I have my own money? I do, but do I have the amount that I would like to invest into the music? Thank you to the grants and to you organizations who respect and nurture artists from here in your country. We need you.
Yeah, definitely, man. About how important are streaming numbers? Does it matter how many people are actually listening on Spotify or whatever?
Yeah, that's one where I'm a little bit in the middle there because I don't think it's the end all be all, right? Yeah. We talked earlier about the different segments of our culture, or at least of this world of music, and how certain sounds are for certain audiences, okay? Certain sounds are for other audiences. I'm an old school MC, if you want to call me that, a boom bap artist, a lyricist. I grew up in a world where we bought records, CDs, and tapes. I still have them available. I know not everybody who's part of my audience is necessarily going to be streaming me. It's a younger audience that's doing most of the streaming. And my numbers aren't fantastic. They're better than what they were. So I'm proud that, yes, I've definitely put in some work to get more people streaming my music. A lot of people use that as their, like I said earlier, it's like how they base their worth.
Right.
So I have X number of listeners, and that means I'm someone. To be honest, no. At the end of the day, if people are hiring you to do a job, i.e., perform, or in my case, perform, act, host, teach, that's me being successful. Hopefully, the streaming helps it. I want people to enjoy my music, but that number is not the be all end all.
Yeah.
You really also don't make money from streams. So that's another thing. If you're in this for the dough and you think streaming is going to make you that dough, that's just the wrong way to go about it.
100%,
So
man. Yep.
yeah, I
All
want
right.
to follow that up by saying, I don't know if you're going to ask this question, but so I will just say, I want to follow that up by saying why I still create the product is because one of my favorite things to do is just chop it up with fans and people who love music, who buy the music. I thank them because that's where artists are making a little bit of change too. If you're
Sure.
actually buying music and not streaming the music, there is a difference
Yep.
for our pockets at the end of the day.
For real. And something I've been kind of on my soapbox about recently is that, like, you can buy digital music too, right? If you are somebody who enjoys streaming, maybe, you know, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. There's only so much space here to put albums, right? I've got a huge CD collection. It's sitting in a box in storage.
Right. That's a lot of people. That's true.
Right. And at this point, I'm buying 20 or 30 new singles every week that I hear as I'm listening through all this new indie rap, and I'm buying it digital, right? But that still puts, I think it was the equivalent of like 6,000 streams or something like that in the artist's pocket, even just buying it for $1, right? So
yeah. Let me say this: I appreciate you for doing that, and I hope people listen to what you're saying and really understand that if you want to support an artist, do that. You're to your point. It's $1 a single. It's still a hell of a lot better than, you know, if you don't want to buy a record or don't have space for it or don't have the cash for it even.
Yeah.
Putting the money in the artist's pocket is certainly a lot more helpful than not doing it, obviously. And why that's important too is because we did come up in a world where we were basing our success on sales. And what they've done as far as this so-called equivalency thing is an absolute joke.
Yeah.
So at last I heard 1,500 streams is the equivalent of one sale. That is so moronic. I can't even begin to explain for so many reasons.
Yeah.
One sale, let's suppose I sell my CD for 20 bucks. Okay. How many times do you think you'll even play? Like, you might love my music, but playing it 1,500 times, like one person playing it 15, that's not going to ever happen. So it's stupid from that realm. Another thing is that the way that my song is being consumed 1,500 times, it can't equal one sale, even within the world of money. I haven't even seen the type of money that says that many streams has equaled what I would have gotten for a sale. So yeah, I don't look at it any of that. Streaming is the commercial for the product. I would love for you to stream my music, but know that if you really want to support, there's a lot more that you can do. Even merch. Again, you can go to danio.com and buy a hoodie or a t-shirt.
Buying tickets for shows, you know. Yeah, buy the physical music still if, you know, if you got space to store it.
100%. Yeah, if you do. If you do, anybody, especially vinyl collectors that are out there,
definitely.
Vigilante is on
beautiful
fire orange vinyl.
Nice.
So, you know, add it to your collection if you ain't got one of these. And oh yeah, the music on it's real good too.
Yeah, that too for sure. How about speaking of the music on it being real good, I saw you made a post about missing the Juno nomination. I wanted to ask, and I've asked a lot of people, the reason I ask these how important questions is kind of because then I can form a consensus and make like a clip montage of all the different artists answering the same thing, because none of these have right answers, right? It's just opinions. But how important is winning industry awards?
Not. But from a certain perspective, not as far as where I have staked my claim in the world of hip hop. I don't need an award for that. Phife Dawg, God rest his soul. I believe it's award tour where he goes, "I never let a statue tell me how nice I am." Right?
Yeah.
We don't require awards to determine our level of greatness in the world of hip hop. There's a lot of artists. I think Snoop is one of them. Like, there's a lot of like legendary. Never mind hip hop. Bob Marley, who's one of my favorite artists of all time. There's artists who haven't won awards.
Yeah.
It means nothing from that perspective. It means a lot from this other perspective. Industry notoriety. Like, if I had been nominated for a Juno, there'd be a lot of new people in maybe higher places who would know of Danio, and perhaps opportunities would come my way as a result.
Sure.
I would really love the opportunity to get my music into more ears. That's what the nomination would have meant to me. As far as the award itself, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
If I were to win one, awesome. But it's not the be all end all at all. So I would never look at it like this is going to determine my worth in the game.
Yeah. Sense,
Yeah,
man.
definitely not one of those thinkers.
How important is album art, the cover art for your
Oh,
album?
yeah, huge for me. I displayed it earlier. In fact, so for example, the day it all changed, there is, and I swear this was before they put out Avengers Endgame, but I am
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
damn.
I'm
You
kind of
got the Thanos
dissolving into.
snap, man.
Yeah, it looks like what after the Thanos snap. This is what's happening, and I want shouts to my brother Devo who has designed my past 4 albums. I'm sort of dissolving and creating my daughter in the album cover. It looks really simple at first look. It's just she and I, but I wanted that to represent me being less important than her, right? It's about her now. It's not about me. So I dissolve sort of into her and she's created from me. So that's that concept. Simple, but still something I wanted to do. Vigilante has more of a detailed concept. So social media I talked about. There's images of, for example, and this actually was Devo, not Devo. Shouts to Doug Knight. I can't believe I didn't say your name yet, brother. Doug Knight, Cross Eye Comics designed this. He's got the charger plug. The Klansman is also being hung by the charger cord. So there's some emojis that have been graffitied onto the wall. So the social media concept of the album is on there. This
Yeah,
is an AR-15. It's a branch. It's a branch, but it looks like a gun.
right.
And that's the gun violence part of the album. I'm obviously tackling the racism part of the album. So there's so much concept. In fact, shouts to Doug Knight for also including the Scarborough. We used to have a train line called the RT. So the background is representative of Scarborough, which is the east side of Toronto, where I'm from. So there's a lot in this. And this is the type of album cover that, in my opinion, is obviously best when it's big. If you have the vinyl, you can listen to the album and hopefully stare at this thing. I used to do that growing up, man. I would
Yeah.
listen to records and stare at it, man, and like read the credits and
You
stuff.
had to read the liner notes, man. That was how
Yeah,
I
man, the
found other
liner notes.
artists and
So
stuff, right? Yeah.
even though a small image, of course, is shown on Spotify while you're streaming, without question, I am a big proponent for album artwork fitting the album. So
For
yeah,
real.
I'm there
Yeah.
with you on that.
I got 2 more of these for you, man. How
Cool.
important is an artist's physical location?
His or her
Yeah,
physical location.
sure. Yeah.
That's a great question. I do think it's important. I'm a beach bum, bro. Like, I can't wait till summer. I love going to the beach. I love the hot weather. If I could, I'd live on the beach. I would live by the water. I say that as someone who would have to not be an artist, would not, have to just do away with any of what I'm doing professionally because I can't be away from the city. Living in the city, a lot of people leave Toronto. It's too expensive to live here, man. I got
Right.
shouts to my brother. Charisma, aka Skiz, is out in Alberta now. So I'm just gonna shout him.
Yeah.
He's out there. He's in Edmonton.
A lot of people move out here. They got to make money
Dude,
someplace, man. Yeah. I've talked to a lot of
I
artists who
know,
have
man.
spent
So,
time out here. Yeah.
but of course, we're all the thing. There's a lot happening here. As an actor, there's a lot of stuff being filmed in Toronto. As an artist, it's just the city. It's the biggest city in our country. I'm also a sports fan, so that's a separate thing. I have to go watch my guys play, my Jays and my Raptors. But anyway, I say all of that to say that it's not the be all end all either. There's a lot of people who say move to LA or move to New York.
Right.
That doesn't mean they're going to be a big superstar just because they're there. In fact, you've found yourself in a much larger pond with many many more fish in the pond, as the euphemism would go. So
Right.
is there something to it? Absolutely. But shouts to Classified. I think he's done interviews and even a record about how he never left Enfield, Nova Scotia, never left his city, and became one of Canada's biggest stars and still represents where he's from. So can it be done? Absolutely. I actually think he's in a class of his own for becoming a homegrown superstar at home. Like,
Sure.
he's big in Canada. He did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
he,
definitely,
he
man.
did it.
He's the blueprint for sure. And I
And it's
think
not one that we can all follow. I'm
no,
telling you, man.
definitely.
We
I think
can't
it
all
only
follow
gets
it.
easier though as the internet kind of opens up more avenues
For
for
sure.
people, right? To
For
push
sure.
their music to a
I'll
wider
say for
audience.
me, probably location's important because I just feel like this is where I'm from, anyways. But I think being here affords me more opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. I would
Yeah.
agree. Okay, last one of these. How important is a song's sound quality or the mix and master of a song?
I love that you asked that. Huge. A message to all artists: mix and master your music. This gives me an opportunity to shouts to my man Mike Smith of Phase One Studios. It is a historic, legendary studio right here in Scarborough. Um, I mastered my last three of my albums there with Mike, and Mike has told me he is getting fewer and fewer mastering sessions. A lot of people are using AI technology, whatever, or just skipping the process completely and putting out unmastered music. I'm obviously old school, but I'm also someone who believes strongly, man, in quality. I promise you, when you play my album next to any other independent, or for that matter, otherwise, I promise you it'll stand right there. Um, Yes. Shouts to my man TJ Habibi. That's my brother, Secret Suburbia Studios. That's where I record all my music. He does the mixing. So yeah, man, the mixing and the mastering process are some of the longest and most arduous parts of completing an album, but I do it every time.
Yeah,
And I think if you're skipping, you are kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit and not doing yourself a service because, excuse me, your music's not going to sound as good as other music that'll be played beside it. Why some people skip is because it's they're just streaming their music, right? So quality of vinyl, quality on CD, the master, it should be top notch. But when you're streaming, just in case you didn't know this, your music is already being broken down quality wise. So it's the same with MP3s. So maybe some people don't care. I do.
fair enough, man.
Yeah.
So, dude, you've talked a couple times about how you've worked teaching people to write songs. I
Yeah.
worked for 2 years myself as kind of a writing coach, recording music with people or whatever, and new artists and
Cool.
stuff. I wanted to ask you just before I kind of wrap this up and let you go here, like,
Yeah.
do you have any like, what's the starting point? What's your biggest tip for people just getting into writing their own lyrics?
Yeah. Uh, I'll happily answer that because I just had a workshop this past weekend. Um, And by the way, anybody in the greater Toronto area wants to hire me for a workshop, holler at me. I just created a brand new package for my program called the School of Rap.
Nice.
Also, get in touch with Next Generation Arts as I am their music facilitator. And with Next Generation Arts, I'm doing these weekend workshops, Saturdays. And I just said this to them, so I'll answer your question with something I talked about last workshop. I don't care how cliche it sounds, I don't care how corny it sounds. Be yourself, be honest, be true to you, because only you can be the best version of you. You can't be the next, I don't know, Busta or Beyonce or whoever your favorite is, Kendrick.
Yeah.
You can't be them. You can try to be like them, you can try to emulate them. Like, listen, straight up, when I was 13 on Can't Test Me, I was trying to be Big Daddy Kane. I'm gonna tell you right now, that was my guy. He's my favorite. But as I, of course, grew, learned, experienced, I found who I was, what my style was, what my sound was, and what I stand for, who I am as a person. That goes into my music. So when I teach my workshops, I usually say that the first step in songwriting isn't actual songwriting. It's literally like having a conversation with yourself. What's on your mind? What do you care about? What do you love? What do you hate? Whatever. We're
Yeah.
having a conversation right now because we're two brothers who love hip hop. And we could technically take a lot of the things that you and I spoke about and decide that's what I'm going to write a song about because it's
Definitely.
important to us. This whole
Yeah.
segment, is it important? So if it's important to you, think about that and and to start your writing process. That's the first step. Again, being original and being unique. I know, whatever, I don't care how cliche it sounds. That's the truth. You can only be the best version of you. You can't be a better version of someone who already did that thing.
Yeah. Nobody
So
wants to hear the
that's
knockoff version of the famous guy either, right?
they did
That's
it already.
yeah,
They
exactly.
did it already. So that is definitely step number one as far as I'm concerned.
Hell yeah, man. Okay, before I let you go here, I get everybody to just describe their local hip hop scene.
Wow. Yeah, that's a hard one to do in a quick shot. It's very diverse. One thing I can tell you that I love about Toronto is extremely diverse. I grew up with everybody, every ethnicity, culture. I've had so many different food. I know the languages or at least the accents. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's a diverse scene. Toronto is a big city, so we have, again, like what we spoke of earlier, we got a lot of those kids who are making a sound that is not for me. We have a lot of the veterans who, as a matter of fact, there was over 100 of us shot in a photo that's currently at the AGO. That is a museum in downtown
Nice.
Toronto that currently has a hip hop culture exhibit. And as part of the exhibit is this huge photograph. A Great Day in Toronto Hip Hop is the name of it. I'm very proud to be part of it, along with 100 other people. And so that picture in and of itself might even be a great way to answer the question, because everybody's in it, from b-boys and b-girls to producers and breakers to promoters to, of course, MCs, etc. Like, everybody and every ethnicity you can imagine is also featured in it. So
Yeah.
while there's a lot of things that I could say about the different sounds and styles and all that stuff, it's a thriving scene because it's so diverse. There's a lot of us who have continued to work and made ourselves so-called legends, or like people in the game who've been around for a long time who's still going at it, and a lot of people coming up. And I can say that because I've been teaching and I see the youth and the amount of incredible talent that's here. And everyone's got their own thing going on. I love that about the city. Like, they're we have a diverse. I don't when people say what's the Toronto sound, I know they were coming up and kind of trying to diss us when Drake and Kendrick were going at it.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm like, you just are ignorant if you don't know that the Toronto sound is diverse. If I were to
Right.
talk about Cardinal, we'd start talking about like a Jamaican influence, right? That goes back decades, right?
Yep.
If we
Yep.
were to talk about Mathematic, we're talking about like a grassroots, gritty, lyrical, type of sound.
Yeah.
Um, I could go on and give you a
For
different
real, man.
example from a
There's
different artist.
a real underground kind of boom bap lyrical based entire
Oh, for
scene
sure.
that I play all the time. There's also, guys making auto tune kind of trap stuff that are doing
Right,
big
man.
numbers out of there or whatever. So yeah.
Exactly. It's all here. And listen, I'm a proud Scarbarian, bro. We believe that Scarborough is the mecca of Canadian hip hop. Listen, I'm from Scarborough. Maestro, Fresh West, Socrates, Shock Claire, Mathematics, Citizen Kane, Tona. It goes on and on, bro.
Yeah.
So, I'm biased, and I'm gonna the whole Monolith crew. I'm gonna shout Scarborough, but again, even in the artists that I just mentioned, I can tell you what makes them different and unique on their own. So we got a
Beautiful.
diverse and large city and a huge culture here, man. So
I
God
always
willing, we'll
ask
just
people
continue to
to
do our thing.
hell yeah, man. I always ask people to share the spotlight. We've already talked about so many different artists, and you just did list off another list of Scarborough artists there.
Yeah, man. I
I
could go on
agree.
and
Those
on
are all dope. People should check them out.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah, man. Do you have any plans for tours or shows or anything like that that we can plug before we get out of here?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I would love to plug the 2025 Artistic Awards. For anybody in the greater Toronto area, it goes down on April 25th, 2025. It's presented by AMP TV. And what this is kind of an answer to one of your questions, brother. And that is, are award shows important? Well, for these big award shows that kind of overlook a lot of independent artists, the 2025 Artistic Awards looks to do right by that. And
Right.
so there are, and I don't know what they all are, but there are nominees and categories for a lot of indie artists from our region. So they're going to be commemorated that night, and I'll be performing. It goes down at Tale of the Junction, which is on Dundas Street West in Toronto. So just hit me online or look up AMP TV underscore Canada on Instagram for more information about that. And yes, there are plans for more now that the weather's going to warm up and the summer's on the way. Listen, brother, you'll be among the first to know, and I will be plugging it because rocking the stage is my favorite thing to do. Of all of the different aspects of my career, there's the writing, there's the recording, there's the teaching, performing on the mic live. That's number one on the list for me. So I have definite plans to do a lot more of that in the months to come.
Beautiful, man. That's one that I ask a lot of people too, is do you get more from the stage or more from the studio? And some people are torn,
Yeah,
but you
stage.
just answered it, man. Yeah.
Stage all day, man. There's nothing like, rocking a crowd than being
Hell
there
yeah.
with you, man. I'm old school, bro. Throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care, man.
Yeah, that's where it was
I
all
live
born
for that.
from, right? That's where
For
it came
sure.
from. So, yeah.
Exactly. Like Rakim said, to me, MC means move the
Move
crowd.
the crowd. Yes, sir. All right, dude. Where can people find you most often on social media? That's the last thing.
Yes, sir. Well, holler at me online, Danny O, spelled Dan-E-O.com. My website will bring you to everything. Remove the dashes for social media, Danny O 1010. So
Okay.
DANEO 1010 on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You'll find me. If you know how to spell it, you'll find me.
Hell yeah, man. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Pleasure was mine, man.
I got all sorts of jewels. You dropped a lot of knowledge here today. So yeah, appreciate you
For sure,
spending
brother.
the time, man.
And I appreciate you offering me this platform to bring all of that to you and to everybody listening and watching, man. Thank you, bro.
Appreciate you, man. All right. Take it easy, dude. Peace.
Big up, respect, peace.
Okay, so that was a lot of fun. It's always easy to talk to artists about art. Here, let me press the right button and there we go. Upcoming interviews on screen. Like I said, I just booked Quake Matthews today, and I'm talking to somebody about that May 27th. So if you're an artist, don't get at me about it just yet. I'm just waiting to confirm the last name, but I will tell you that it looks like May is going to have a pretty stacked lineup. I'm excited to talk to everybody on this list coming up. Next week, I'm talking to Ezza, April 15th. I talked to J.O. Mayers, now just known as J.O., but half of Run and Gun, Mississauga-based MC, April 22nd. Kripal on the 27th, Edmonton-based guy. He's coming back to talk about his new upcoming album. And then on the 29th, I'm talking to a Vancouver-based MC named Hard Body Dreams. Looking forward to chopping it up with him about kind of the West Coast scene. I've talked to a few artists from Vancouver and Victoria, but Hard Body Dreams really leans into the lyrical boom bap sound, and I just am not sure if there's as much prominence for that out in Vancouver as there kind of seems to be in the underground of Toronto. So that'll be an interesting conversation. Then I'm talking to Gritfall and Roshan. They've got a project coming up. I've talked to both of them before on Fly Information, but we're going to get all three of us in the same Zoom call and chop it up there. I'm talking to Winnipeg-based artist Hellenbach. Dude is, First Nations legend out here. I mean, legend without that caveat put to it, but he described himself that way, so I'm gonna say it. And then, Quake Matthews on the 20th, and another great guest on the 27th. So make sure you hit follow here on YouTube, hit follow over at twitch.tv/Doobyis. Come through for the live interviews, pop into chat if you've got questions or just want to say hi. Help build the community, tell people about the show. If you enjoy listening to independent hip-hop, check out mixcloud.com/Doobyis. That's where you can find After the Smoke is Clear, hour worth of brand new release independent hip-hop every week. I'll keep coming back here Tuesdays to talk to new artists. I'm also online on Twitch various other afternoons through the week doing various other things. So come through, say hi. I appreciate y'all, and I'll catch you up next time.